Hey, did you guys know that the Republicans have a slavery problem? I know, shocking, right? This has come to the forefront as they do their little march, they do their little dance for a new demon in their life. It used to be political correctness. It used to be wokeness. It used to be CRT even, but now they have a new one. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those things are the new evil to Republicans, and they're looking to take it down as much as they can. On the back of that, and on the back of getting completely bodied in Iowa, I want to look at something that Nikki Haley said a little while ago, but I didn't have the time to talk about. And it's just so strange, in my opinion, but not very surprising. Nikki Haley was asked a question about slavery, specifically what caused the Civil War. She had a little problem with it, but I want to take a look at her answer and then talk about it a bit. Let's take a look.
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? I'm sorry?
I'm not running for president. I want to see your
That's a good thing.
On the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government and what the rights of the people are. And I will always stand by the fact that I think government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. Government doesn't need to tell you how to live your life. They don't need to tell you what you can and can't do. They don't need to be a part of your life. They need to make sure that you have freedom. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way.
Thank you. And in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
True.
What do you want me to say about slavery?
No, you've answered my question. Thank you.
Next question.
Yeah, got him. Right? And I think it's incredibly interesting. Yes, he's right. 2023, talk about slavery. 2023, talk about the Civil War and don't mention slavery at least once. Kind of wild, isn't it? To conservatives, no. Right, but they've been a part of a concerted effort throughout about 160 years to try to change the meaning of the Civil War away from slavery, because that's like a really bad thing that the people that they so much hold up as strong defenders of freedom and whatnot are actually slave driving rapist maniacs looking to take advantage of every person and everything that they can to make the most amount of money as possible, no matter how deranged, diabolical, unscrupulous, or evil it may be. That's maybe that's just me or something, you know? Wild, is it? Next question. Next question. Right? Even when they pressed her, she still refused to answer. Next question. Of course. It's like because she doesn't want to say stuff like that. She was governor of South Carolina, if I remember correctly. She was. Yes, she served as governor of South Carolina from 2011 and 2017. Okay. And actually, Nikki Haley, I found out, has a very weird and sordid history when it comes to the Civil War, slavery, and actually the Confederate flag. It's something that's incredibly interesting that I actually found out. Now, before we hop into that, I want to talk a little bit about her response to after this, because this clip went a little viral. Her not mentioning slavery at all when talking about the Civil War, in a state that she specifically governed, that seceded because of Civil War, because of slavery, right? Back in the day. But anyway, she was on CNN. She talked about this a little bit, and I don't think she made her case much better, but let's listen to this.
And this, of course, is referring back to New Hampshire, where you were asked to explain the cause of the Civil War. You obviously did not mention slavery. And afterwards, you came up, you said that was a mistake. In fact, you said it should have been the first thing that you said. So you did come out and say that. Chris Christie, though, came out and said that you gave that answer not because you're, in his words, dumb or racist, but because you're, quote, unwilling to offend anyone by telling the truth. What do you say to that?
No one's ever said that I am unwilling to offend. I offend plenty of people because I call people out when they do something wrong. What I will tell you is Chris Christie is from New Jersey. I should have said slavery right off the bat. But if you grow up in South Carolina, literally in second and third grade, you learn about slavery. You grow up and you have, I had black friends growing up. It is a very talked about thing.
Ooh, it's so good. It's actually perfect. She did have black friends, y'all. She did. They literally don't teach you. I mean, they teach you. No, they teach you. They teach you about the happy slaves that were very happy to help their masters, and they actually were paid they were actually paid and treated very well. Oh, but then the North came in and ruined everything, right? Very, very weird stuff. Okay, I want to talk about something really quick. All right, Nikki Haley does have a weird history with this stuff. Yeah, she did come out to say that maybe I should have said it first, but she also came out to say that it was definitely a Democrat plant, Haley said. That's why I said, what does it mean to you? And if you notice, he didn't answer anything. The same reason he didn't tell the reporters what his name was. Bro, it's a Democrat plant. That's what got me. Every voter who has a tough question for me is actually a Democrat plant put up by Nancy Pelosi to make me look bad by asking me very simple questions that I could have easily batted away with normal answers that anybody could have brought up. All right? Very, very strange stuff there, that apparently a Democrat plant can fluster you so bad they can ask you a question that has like 10 words in it. About one of the most important historical events in America that most everybody has a very simple answer for. All right, here's the thing. A lot of conservatives have been spending a lot of time ever since the Civil War looking to remake the image of the Confederates, the South, slavery, and the history of that, because originally it was a horrible history of a group of people that mostly cared about keeping their slaves so they can rape, torture, and murder them as much as they wanted because they made money off of the rape, torture, and murder, and the government coming in and telling them that they couldn't rape, torture, and murder as much as they wanted made them feel like their freedoms were being infringed on because the freedoms of the slaves didn't exist because they weren't people. And the government even helped solidify that by bringing in the Senate, for one, bringing in the delegates when it comes to presidency, two, and bringing in the 3/5 compromise, four, as many things. When Abraham Lincoln was elected president over the conservative South once, they decided to secede. All right. Now, the normal response to a weirdo conservative slavery apologist who tries to tell you that, oh, actually, the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. The normal retort is states' rights about what? And that's usually where I see the conversation ending. But I want to move forward into that because you need to know how to actually combat this stuff when you reach it, because some of them will be a small amount smarter than your average dumb fuck conservative who doesn't know how to answer after that. They're going to say, in response to that, more likely than not, they're going to say it was about states' rights to secede. That's what the Civil War was actually about, is that the states just wanted to secede, and the Civil War was about whether or not you could secede, and that's the real reason. Now, why in the world would the states decide that they wanted to secede? Was it just because they thought it'd be fun, like a cool thing? No, it's because they thought the government was going to take away their slaves, because Abraham Lincoln was less pro-slavery than the guy who wanted to rape, torture, and murder all of the slaves, because he thought it was the funnest, most epicest thing in the world to them, and that was their guy, and they lost, so they decided to just leave the country all entirely, once again it being slavery. Now that person may also retort and come back to tell you, for some reason, weirdly enough, that the states that seceded, yeah, sure, some of them mentioned slavery, but most of them actually didn't. I heard a guy actually recently say that 13 states seceded. That's not true. It was 11, actually. And only only 5 of them mention slavery, which isn't even 50% of the states that seceded. The other ones did so because they really wanted to secede, right? That's actually not true. The real answer is, for one, it was 11 states that seceded, not 13. I don't know where they got like a 13 number at. Maybe they're just too stupid to count. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? But here's the thing. It wasn't even 5 states, 13 colonies. It wasn't even 5. Well, they weren't technically colonies, but it was actually more than 5 states. It was 6 states that claimed slavery or referenced slavery in their reasons for seceding. The other states didn't cite a reason at all. So the reasons for the states seceding that they personally made was, for one, slavery, and 2, nothing. So most of the states that seceded did in fact say that slavery was the reason for why they were seceding. Once again, slavery is the reason for the Civil War. And even the beginning of the Civil War started when the South decided to attack Sumter and make their own little new slave state that runs completely on slavery, which was the Confederate States of America, right? That's what happened. You're going to have a lot of conservatives try to lie to you, to try to tell you that there's something different, use every trick in the book to be able to confuse you, to dupe you into believing that that group of people wasn't probably one of the most evil groups of people to ever exist in the history of humanity, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. Now, a lot of people think that might be hyperbolic. You can't sit here and tell me that wanting to run an entire society over rape, torture, and murder is not a society that, I hate to say it, deserves to be destroyed. Some cultures are worse than other cultures, and Confederate culture is some of the worst. It's some of the worst. I hate to say it. It may even be one of the worst. Actually, one of the worst. American chattel slavery is comparable to the genocide of Native Americans in this country, comparable to the Holocaust as well. We don't need to do an oppression Olympics here, but it is a comparable sin that humanity has committed, and they deserve to be. The Confederacy is my Amalek. Okay, remember what Amalek did to you. All right, we must wipe the seed of Amalek. That's just my personal opinion. Okay, that's just what I personally think. We must wipe the seed of Amalek. Okay, remember what they did to you. Remember what they took from you. That's all I'm saying. That's all I got to say about this one. Yeah, and then conservatives have had really weird responses to this, slowly moving towards slavery wasn't that bad, or slavery was okay, or maybe even slavery was good. Like DeSantis coming out that slavery was good for slaves because they learned skills. There were blacksmith slaves and wheat cutting slaves, and then there were tailor slaves and cooking slaves. They learned such amazing, wonderful skills that they were able to take with them after slavery to make their lives better. So true, buddy. Black slave named Smith. Yeah, 100%. Perfect. They should be grateful, honestly. They should be thanking us. And the thing is, a lot of people are going to give her slack for this. I really don't think that you should give her slack for this. And the reason for why I don't believe so is the main reason is because she's not even in lockstep with the majority of Southerners anymore. She's genuinely not. Okay. And I say this because for the first time in American history, and I want to talk about this in a more expanded way in a segment in the future, but for the first time, and I made a post about this, the Confederacy has finally lost the Civil War. 160 years later, the Confederacy lost the Civil War. And many of you may be thinking, what do you mean they got blown out? They got their backs blown out after they got their shit burned to the ground. What I mean is the war of ideology, that was the Cold War of ideology that was waged after they lost the hot war, that was the Civil War. They finally lost that war, and the end of that war has finally begun. Yeah, the war of the myth, the lost cause that they were trekking on. The majority of Southerners now, for the first time in American history, the majority of Southerners now view the Confederate flag as a racist symbol. The first time. And the first time this poll has ever been taken since the Civil War ended, that the majority of white Americans say that the Confederate flag is a racist symbol. The first time ever. The first time ever. And this is finally the end of the real of the real Civil War, the longest one that happened in this country, the war of ideology. It finally happened. We won, Mr. Stark. We won. Finally. It took a really long time, but they finally did it. Now, I think Nikki Haley has a very personal history with this, not only because she messed up one of the easiest slam dunk questions to ever be asked by a human ever, honestly, but also the fact that she controlled, that she governed a state that was a Confederate state in the past. And she actually wrote about it in her book a little bit. I would like to pull this Washington Post article that says something really interesting that she wrote in her book, right? Because back in the day, a little while ago, South Carolina still had a Confederate, the Union Jack. No, it's not Union. No, that's a much different flag. Sorry. Still had the Confederate battle flag as their state flag. In 2019, Haley writes in her book that includes a chapter on the decision that she made to remove the Confederate flag as in 2015, she signs a bill officially removing the Confederate flag after it passed the Senate 37-3 and the House 94-20, a decisive end to the Confederate flag. And for the longest time she was governor of South Carolina, she pushed to make sure that the flag stayed in place and said that it's history. It's a part of our history. We need to remember the fact that we loved rape, torture, and murder. And that was like our whole thing, dude. We can't forget that, can we? It's our history, man. It was like that until the lives of black people were taken from them once more. And the person who did it was actually Dylan Roof, that mass shooter that racist mass shooter in South Carolina that shot up a black church, killed tens of black people and did it all under the Confederate flag. The actual purpose of that Confederate flag. He brought back the history, the real meaning of that Confederate flag for the first time, and the first time that conservatives actually had to face their history for what it really was. They buckled under the weight. The thousands, the millions of gallons of blood that were spilled by black people in this country. The first time they ever saw the river of blood that they championed as their history, they buckled under the weight. And after that, after more black people had to suffer for them to finally come to grips with the history that they championed as their heritage, she fell and took the flag with her. She writes in her book that includes a chapter on the decision that she made. She writes of Dylan Roof. The evil act he had committed had robbed the good intentions of South Carolinians who supported the flag of this symbol of heritage and service. He had encouraged everyone's worst stereotypes of our state. Clearly, something had to be done. But at the same time, I worry that allowing a killer to define what the flag represented for everyone was a surrender. Why should he, of all people, be given that power? She says that when pictures of Dylan Roof and the Confederate flag were discovered, she told her husband, "I don't see any way that flag can continue to fly at the State House." This is still apologia, my God. Yeah, she can't get over the fact that, oh, it's my history, it's our heritage, it's for our service. It's for the service. Come on. Like, can you even imagine if any other group of people held up their flag as their ancestors fought for literally the epitome of evil? Can you even imagine if in Germany they kept swastikas on buildings because it's their heritage? Can you imagine that? Can you even imagine that for a moment? Can you imagine can you imagine like Mongolians telling Russians and Tibetan, people in Russia, like those smaller ethnic groups in Russia, Tibetans, those people, and like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, those people, if they started erecting fucking Genghis Khan statues. Can you even imagine? I'm telling you, man, can you imagine in New York, they erected like Osama bin Laden statues in New York, and they said that, and conservatives would be like, listen, it's their heritage. They have to keep the statues up. Okay, buddy. All right, buddy. Sure, buddy. In any other context, this makes absolutely no sense because it's absolutely ridiculous from start to finish. From start to finish. Imperial Japan. Yeah. Yeah, can you imagine in South Korea, the Japan erected statues of like the old Japanese emperor that took of the old Japanese emperor that took like comfort women from Korea. They had a statue of him in Seoul, but they had to keep it up because that's their history. In any other way, this makes literally no sense. It's not your history. That flag is dipped, it's soaked in blood, and the point of it was to draw more blood from more minorities for the end of time. That was the reason for why they did it. And this is something that Haley can't wrap her mind around. The flag was never about freedom. It was about subjugation. That's the point. And the myth that conservatives want to tell you that their ancestors were good people who were just fighting for their farm is usually wrong. Now, a lot of people in the South were thrown to the wolves to fight for those slave owners and those plantations that they were told to protect. I will 100% say that, and you can feel sorry about that, but that's only more reason for you to distrust, dislike, and hate the Confederate Army for destroying an entire group of people for the subjugation of another to continue into perpetuity. It's disgusting. It's gross. It's nasty. I hate you. You're ugly. I'm going to kill you. Give me $200.
You're ugly. You're disgusting. I'm going to kill you. Give me $200.
Nikki Haley, you need to stop. It's cringe. It's racist. And you can't even lean back on we're all Southerners here. So that's just how we think of it. No, you can't. Because they don't even anymore. Stop thinking so poorly of them. I know I don't. I know they're better than that. Maybe you don't.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see you there. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button. If you don't, it'll make Boo very sad. I know a bunch of you who are watching are not subscribed. Join the frenzy. You won't regret it.
Thank you, Boo.